What could possibly make a young royal publicly reject an offer from Queen Camilla herself? Sources claim the promise was not only shocking, but deeply unsettling. Behind closed doors, in a private meeting no cameras were allowed to witness, Princess Louise was allegedly presented with something so controversial, so morally disturbing, that her response stunned even senior palace aides. And tonight, we unravel what she was promised, and why she refused. The invitation arrived quietly. No official crest, no grand announcement, just a carefully worded request for Princess Louise to attend a private discussion under strict confidentiality. Those inside the palace understood immediately this was not a courtesy call. This was strategic. And strategy inside royal walls rarely comes without strings attached. Louise entered that meeting as she always had, poised, respectful, observant. She had grown up understanding the weight of tradition, the unspoken rules of hierarchy, the delicate dance of loyalty that keeps the monarchy standing. But what she encountered that day was not tradition. It was proposition. Palace whispers later described the proposal as forward-thinking. Others were less diplomatic. They called it calculated. Some even called it dangerous. According to insiders, Queen Camilla laid out a vision for the monarchy's future, one where the next generation would publicly align with her reforms, her inner circle, her legacy. And at the center of that vision stood Princess Louise. The alleged promise was wrapped in opportunity, greater visibility, elevated responsibilities, exclusive patronages that would fast-track Louise into unprecedented influence. It sounded empowering, it sounded generous, but beneath that polished surface was a condition that changed everything. Alignment, public endorsement, and a quiet distancing from certain senior figures whose influence did not serve Camilla's long-term strategy. Louise did not interrupt. She did not argue. She listened, composed, still. But those who later saw her leaving that room noticed something had shifted. Her calm was intact, yet her expression carried the weight of realization. This was not mentorship. It was recruitment. One senior aide, reportedly positioned just outside the chamber, overheard fragments of the conversation. Enough to understand the stakes, enough to later confide to a colleague that what had been proposed felt disgusting. Not because ambition is wrong, but because loyalty, in that moment, had been treated as a transaction. And that is where the tension truly begins. Because this was never just about titles. It was about influence over the monarchy's moral direction. It was about who shapes the future narrative, and who must quietly fall in line to make that narrative possible. Camilla, seasoned and strategic, understood that power secured through the younger generation is power that lasts. But she may have underestimated one crucial detail: Princess Louise's quiet strength. There is a generational power struggle brewing beneath the polished surface of royal diplomacy, a silent contest between calculated consolidation and principled independence. And when Louise walked out of that meeting without offering immediate acceptance, it sent a signal. A subtle one, but powerful. Because rejection, in a monarchy built on duty and deference, is not just personal, it is political. But to understand why Princess Louise's rejection carries such explosive weight, we need to uncover what Camilla was truly trying to secure behind palace doors. For years, Queen Camilla has been portrayed as strategic, careful, patient, and politically aware. But insiders suggest this latest move crossed a line. The offer to Princess Louise was allegedly part of a long-term plan to reshape royal alliances, placing loyalty above bloodline. And what Louise was promised in return may reveal a darker ambition, one that threatens to divide the monarchy at its core. To understand the weight of that meeting, you have to understand Camilla's reputation inside palace corridors. She is not impulsive. She does not gamble without calculating the odds. Every appearance, every patronage, every alliance has reportedly been built with long-term positioning in mind. So when she summoned Princess Louise privately, it was not a spontaneous gesture of mentorship. It was, according to sources, a carefully timed maneuver. The promise placed before Louise was extraordinary. A fast-tracked elevation in royal status, greater public prominence, exclusive privileges that would allow her to spearhead high-profile initiatives with significant funding and global attention. For a young royal navigating a complex hierarchy, it could have been life-changing. It was framed as empowerment, as recognition, as destiny calling her forward. But beneath that glossy promise was a condition few expected. Louise, insiders claim, would be required to publicly endorse a series of controversial initiatives closely associated with Camilla's inner circle. Reforms that had already stirred quiet discomfort among certain senior royals. Strategic shifts that some believed prioritized personal legacy over institutional stability. Acceptance would not simply elevate Louise, it would bind her. And that binding came with another quiet expectation. Distance. Subtle but unmistakable. Louise would need to recalibrate her visible loyalties, particularly toward certain senior figures whose influence stood in quiet opposition to Camilla's evolving power base. No dramatic confrontation. No public feud, just a gradual repositioning that would speak volumes without ever being spoken aloud. Think of your future, Camilla reportedly urged during that conversation. 4 simple words. Encouraging on the surface. Pressuring underneath. Because in royal life, the future is not merely personal, it is political. And being told to think of it often means choosing between ambition and allegiance. There are whispers that Camilla's urgency stems from a deeper insecurity. A concern about how history will judge her role. A desire to cement influence not only in her own era, but in the generation that follows. If Louise aligned with her, it would signal that the monarchy's future was not divided. It would silence critics who question her standing. It would reinforce her narrative. But here is where the psychological tension tightens. The offer was presented as opportunity, yet structurally it resembled obligation. The privileges were dazzling but conditional. The advancement was swift but tethered. It was less a gift and more a contract, unwritten yet unmistakable. And for Princess Louise, who has been raised to value continuity and family cohesion above personal glory, the cost became painfully clear. Because acceptance would not have been neutral. It would have meant endorsing decisions that directly affected someone she holds dear. Someone whose position, influence, and emotional well-being could be undermined by this very shift in allegiance. That is the heart of the dilemma. Not power, not prestige, but betrayal. And as Louise quietly processed the magnitude of what was being asked of her, she realized that stepping forward under Camilla's banner might require stepping away from someone she has always fiercely protected. And that betrayal, if carried out, would have directly impacted the one person Princess Louise has always fiercely protected. Princess Louise has never been considered a rebel. Quiet, graceful, observant. But insiders say her loyalty runs deeper than anyone anticipated. When confronted with Camilla's offer, Louise didn't hesitate because she feared scandal. She hesitated because accepting it would have meant turning her back on family. And that is a line she reportedly refused to cross. To understand the magnitude of her decision, you have to look at the bond that shaped her. Louise has long been described as fiercely devoted to a senior royal figure whose guidance has quietly anchored her life inside the institution. Their connection is not loud or performative. It is steady, protective, rooted in shared values about duty and restraint, and according to palace whispers, that very figure stood to lose the most if Louise aligned herself with Camilla's proposed reforms. In private conversations following the meeting, Louise reportedly confided her unease to a trusted confidant. Not outrage, not anger, unease. She spoke of the offer as something that felt wrong not because it lacked prestige, but because it demanded a shift in loyalty disguised as progress. She questioned whether ambition earned at the cost of allegiance was ambition worth having. And for someone raised within a system that prizes unity, that question was not small. It was seismic. This was not a simple choice between advancement and stagnation. It was a test of identity. On one side stood a future painted in bold strokes: greater authority, greater influence, a fast track to shaping the monarchy's public image. On the other stood integrity, quieter but unshakable. Louise wrestled with the contrast in silence. Insiders say she spent hours alone, replaying every word of that proposal, measuring its promise against its price. Palace staff began to notice the shift. Her composure remained intact in public engagements, yet there was a subtle withdrawal behind the scenes. Fewer casual conversations. longer pauses. A heaviness that did not match her usual steady warmth. Something had unsettled her deeply, and those closest to her sensed that a line had been drawn. Then came the note. According to reports, Louise drafted a handwritten response declining the offer. Not confrontational, not accusatory, simply firm. She expressed gratitude for the opportunity, but made it clear she could not accept terms that required compromising her sense of loyalty. The language, insiders say, was measured yet unmistakably resolute. It was the kind of refusal that does not shout, but cannot be ignored. The emotional fallout rippled quietly through inner royal circles. Some admired her courage. Others feared the consequences. Because rejecting a proposal from Queen Camilla is not merely a personal decision, it is a political statement. It signals independence. It signals resistance. And in a monarchy where harmony is carefully curated, resistance carries weight. There are already whispers that this choice may cost Louise opportunities in the future. That doors once open might close. That influence once offered may not be extended again. But if she feels the loss, she has not shown it. What she has shown, instead, is unwavering alignment with the values she was raised to protect. And yet, while many expected tension to simmer quietly after her refusal, no one anticipated what would follow next. Because the true shock came not from Louise's refusal, it came from how Camilla reacted to being denied. Queen Camilla is not accustomed to hearing no, especially not from someone younger, less powerful, and far lower in the royal hierarchy. When Princess Louise reportedly rejected the proposal, insiders claim the atmosphere inside the palace shifted instantly. What was meant to be a quiet agreement turned into a silent standoff, and Camilla's response may have revealed just how much she had at stake. The refusal did not explode. It did not erupt into shouting or public drama. It was far more controlled than that. But control, in royal politics, can be more intimidating than anger. Within hours of receiving Louise's handwritten response, Camilla is said to have requested a second, more pointed conversation. Not to persuade, to clarify. Those present described the tone as restrained but razor-sharp. Camilla reportedly questioned Louise's understanding of duty, suggesting that personal hesitation should never outweigh institutional strategy. The implication was clear. This was bigger than one young royal's discomfort. This was about the monarchy's direction. And by declining, Louise was not simply protecting her conscience, she was disrupting a carefully laid plan. Louise remained composed. But composure, in the face of pressure, can feel like defiance. Sources suggest Camilla shifted her approach. The language softened, but the message hardened. She allegedly spoke of consequences, not as punishment, but as natural outcomes. Opportunities evolve. Roles change. Influence is not guaranteed. It was guidance, wrapped around a warning. Accepting the offer would have secured Louise's assent. Refusing it could stall her trajectory indefinitely. For a moment, the room reportedly held a charged stillness. A battle of willpower masked by politeness. Camilla, seasoned and politically astute, was not merely defending an idea, she was defending her authority. And Louise, though younger and far less entrenched in palace power, was quietly asserting independence. Rumors quickly spread among senior courtiers. Damage control discussions began almost immediately. How would this look if it leaked? Could it be reframed as a misunderstanding? Was reconciliation possible before factions hardened? Palace officials understand that internal disagreements are inevitable. Public fractures are not. But beneath the procedural scrambling lay something more personal. Whispers emerged that Camilla felt humiliated. Not enraged. Humiliated. Being denied by a younger royal disrupted more than strategy, it bruised pride. It suggested that influence over the next generation was not as secure as she believed. And in a monarchy where perception equals power, that realization stings. The ripple effect was subtle but unmistakable. Communications between royal offices grew cautious. Invitations were scrutinized. Statements were delayed. A quiet recalibration began, as if everyone sensed that lines had been drawn even if no one dared to acknowledge them openly. Louise returned to her duties with calm discipline, but insiders say she understood the gravity of what she had triggered. This was no longer just about rejecting an offer. It was about challenging an emerging power structure. And Camilla, for all her strategic patience, is not known to retreat easily. There is a reason this moment feels heavier than a simple disagreement. Because when authority is questioned, even gently, it creates tremors that travel far beyond one conversation. And those tremors were already moving. Because within days, whispers of the rejected offer began circulating beyond palace walls. The monarchy survives on silence, but this time silence broke. Anonymous sources began hinting at a disturbing promise tied to Princess Louise. Social media speculation erupted. Commentators demanded answers. And suddenly, what was supposed to remain buried inside royal chambers was becoming a public relations nightmare. The palace had a problem and it wasn't going away. It started as a whisper. A vague post from an anonymous account suggesting that a young royal had rejected an inappropriate advancement. Within hours, that whisper evolved into a storm. Online forums dissected every recent appearance, every subtle exchange, every perceived shift in body language. The phrase "disturbing promise" spread like wildfire, and though no official names were initially attached, insiders knew exactly what it referenced. Then came the alleged leak. Sources claim a disillusioned staff member, someone frustrated by internal maneuvering, quietly shared fragments of the story with an outside contact. Not full details, just enough to ignite suspicion. Enough to confirm that Princess Louise had declined an offer from Queen Camilla, and that the refusal had not been amicable. In a monarchy that depends on controlled messaging, even a small breach can unravel years of careful narrative management. Public discussion turned pointed. Why would Louise reject such an opportunity? What conditions were attached? Was this an attempt to consolidate power through the next generation? Commentators began openly questioning Camilla's motives. Some framed it as strategic ambition. Others used harsher language: manipulation, coercion, legacy building at any cost. The tone sharpened with every passing day. Royal analysts added fuel to the fire. They spoke of generational tension, of a monarchy caught between tradition and reinvention, of younger royals being positioned not merely as heirs to responsibility, but as instruments of influence. The narrative shifted from a private disagreement to a symbol of something far larger: a possible fracture in the institution's internal unity. Through it all, Princess Louise remained composed. She fulfilled engagements with steady professionalism, offering no public hint of the turmoil swirling around her name. That composure, however, only intensified speculation. Was she protecting the monarchy or protecting herself? The contrast was striking. Outside chaos, inside restraint. Success in public duty, suffering in private consequence. Pressure mounted behind palace doors. Senior royals were reportedly urged to intervene, to mediate, to clarify, to contain. Silence was no longer a shield. It was becoming an admission. Crisis meetings unfolded discreetly, with communications advisors weighing every possible statement and every potential risk. Should they deny the rumors, downplay them, or let the storm exhaust itself? But storms fueled by mystery rarely fade quietly. What unsettled insiders most was not the leak itself, it was what it represented. If loyalty within the palace could fracture enough to produce a whistleblower, what else was vulnerable? The narrative was no longer just about an offer rejected. It was about control slipping, about influence being challenged in ways that could not easily be reversed. And beneath the escalating headlines, one unsettling thought began to take shape. If Princess Louise's refusal exposed internal ambition, it may also have exposed shifting alliances. Power inside the monarchy is rarely static. It moves, it adapts, it consolidates in unexpected places. And as pressure mounted, another royal figure quietly stepped into the shadows of this unfolding drama. In moments of royal crisis, alliances reveal themselves. As Camilla faced mounting scrutiny, Princess Louise reportedly found support from an unexpected corner of the palace. This figure, respected, cautious, and politically influential, did not publicly condemn Camilla. But privately, their backing of Louise sent a clear message: the next generation would not be controlled so easily. The name circulating in hushed conversations was one that carried weight. A senior royal known for discipline, restraint, and unwavering commitment to institutional stability. Not impulsive, not theatrical, but deeply attuned to the long game. According to insiders, This figure requested a discreet conversation with Louise at the height of the controversy, away from advisors, away from speculation. Just two members of the same family confronting a turning point. What passed between them was not fiery rebellion. It was measured clarity. Louise was reportedly advised to stand firm not out of defiance, but out of principle. Integrity outlasts pressure, she was told. Those words, simple yet powerful, reframed her choice. This was no longer about refusing Camilla. It was about safeguarding the monarchy's moral center from becoming transactional. The strategy that followed was subtle. No public statements. No visible alliance. Just silence. Strategic silence. In royal politics, silence can shield as much as it conceals. By refusing to publicly weigh in, this senior royal avoided escalating the conflict while quietly signaling support through presence, through proximity, through unspoken endorsement. And within palace corridors, such gestures are never accidental. That quiet backing shifted the internal atmosphere. Courtiers began recalculating their positions. Staff once hesitant to express concern found themselves emboldened. The idea that Louise stood alone dissolved. She was no longer a solitary figure resisting pressure. She was part of a generational current asserting independence. Camilla, ever perceptive, reportedly sensed the shift almost immediately. Influence is measured not only by loyalty declared, but by loyalty withheld. Invitations that once guaranteed compliance now met with polite delay. Conversations grew guarded. The balance of internal power, though subtle, began to tilt. And when power tilts inside a monarchy, even slightly, it reshapes every future negotiation. What makes this alliance so significant is its symbolism. It suggests that the younger generation is not merely inheriting titles, they are inheriting agency. They are watching, weighing, deciding. The monarchy's future will not be dictated by a single voice, no matter how strategically positioned that voice may be. It will be negotiated through shared values and protected relationships. For Louise, this support did not erase the tension. It deepened the stakes. With backing comes expectation. With solidarity comes responsibility. She was no longer just defending herself, she was representing a broader resistance to influence that feels coercive rather than collaborative. The emotional burden intensified even as her position strengthened. And beneath it all, a realization began to crystallize within the palace walls. This confrontation was never confined to one proposal. It was never merely about advancement or endorsement. It was about who defines the monarchy's evolution, about whether ambition can override allegiance, about whether legacy will be constructed through persuasion or pressure. As alliances solidified and loyalties quietly realigned, the rejected offer transformed from a private dispute into a symbol of something far more consequential, something structural, something generational. Because what Princess Louise exposed may signal a deeper struggle for the monarchy's future. By now, one question dominates every discussion. What exactly was Princess Louise promised that she found so disturbing? Sources suggest the offer included unprecedented influence, financial privileges, and control over charitable initiatives, but only if she publicly aligned herself with Camilla's inner circle. To some, it sounded like empowerment. To Louise, insiders claim, it felt like exploitation disguised as opportunity. The details, as they have slowly emerged through palace whispers, paint a picture far more layered than a simple promotion. Louise was allegedly offered exclusive access to funding streams that would have placed her at the helm of high-profile philanthropic ventures. Major patronages, international platforms, the kind of accelerated prominence that usually takes decades to earn. It was, on paper, a dream scenario for a young royal eager to make meaningful impact. But the dream came with conditions written between the lines. Embedded within the proposal was a requirement that Louise publicly endorse a series of reforms closely tied to Camilla's strategic vision for the monarchy. These reforms, though framed as modernization, had already sparked quiet resistance among senior figures who believed they risked undermining long-standing traditions. Acceptance would have placed Louise front and center as the youthful face of change, a symbolic endorsement that would silence critics and legitimize the shift. And then, there was the most delicate clause of all. According to insiders, Alignment with Camilla's circle would have necessitated a subtle distancing from certain family members who had expressed reservations about these reforms. Not an open rift, not a dramatic break, just a recalibration of proximity. Fewer joint appearances, fewer shared initiatives. A gradual repositioning that would speak volumes without uttering a word. For Louise, whose identity is deeply intertwined with loyalty, that requirement struck at the core of who she is. The pitch, sources say, was emotionally persuasive. Camila allegedly emphasized the historic nature of the opportunity. She spoke of legacy, of stepping boldly into leadership, of shaping history rather than being shaped by it. She framed the decision as courageous, forward-thinking, necessary. But beneath that language was an unmistakable undertone. This was a test of allegiance. Louise listened. She absorbed every promise, every incentive. And in that quiet reflection, she reportedly saw beyond the immediate prestige. She saw headlines years from now. She saw narratives suggesting she had chosen ambition over unity. She saw the subtle erosion of trust from those who had guided her since childhood. The long-term reputational cost began to outweigh the short-term elevation. This was the turning point. Because in royal life, ambition is expected. But transactional loyalty? That crosses into dangerous territory. Louise understood that once she attached her name to a controversial agenda, there would be no undoing it. Her influence would no longer feel earned, it would feel negotiated. And that distinction matters profoundly inside an institution built on symbolism. Her moral discomfort intensified as she weighed the implications. Was she being invited to lead or being positioned as a shield? Was this genuine empowerment, or was she being used to validate a consolidation of power? The more she considered it, the clearer it became, the offer was not simply about expanding her role. It was about reshaping the monarchy's internal balance through her compliance. And so she chose differently. In declining, she did more than protect her conscience. She rejected the idea that loyalty can be traded for status. She refused to become a symbol of generational endorsement for an agenda she did not fully trust. It was a quiet act, but symbolically thunderous. And in refusing the offer, Princess Louise may have unknowingly ignited the most consequential royal confrontation of her generation. This was never just about one promise. It was about control, influence, legacy. Princess Louise's rejection has allegedly exposed a fault line within the monarchy, one between strategic power plays and principled loyalty. As palace insiders brace for further fallout, the question now isn't whether the offer was disgusting. It's whether the monarchy can survive the internal struggle it revealed. Behind closed doors, conversations have reportedly grown sharper. What once seemed like routine policy debates now carry ideological weight. On one side stands a vision of streamlined authority, decisive modernization, and tightly managed influence. On the other stands a quieter but equally powerful conviction that the monarchy's strength lies not in consolidation, but in cohesion. That loyalty cannot be engineered. That legacy cannot be forced. This divide is no longer theoretical. It is personal. Senior members of the royal household are said to be calculating the long-term consequences with intense precision. Public trust, always fragile, now hangs in delicate balance. The monarchy's survival depends not just on tradition, but on perception. And perception shifts quickly when internal conflict becomes visible. Even the faintest hint of manipulation or power struggle can erode decades of careful image building. Princess Louise, once considered peripheral in grand strategy, has unexpectedly become a symbol, not because she sought attention, not because she issued statements, but because she chose restraint over reward. In doing so, she embodies something the public instinctively understands: integrity under pressure. And that symbolism carries more weight than any title. Yet this elevation of Louise's moral stance creates a new dilemma. If she becomes the face of principled resistance, what does that make those who pushed the proposal? The narrative risks hardening into opposition. And opposition within a monarchy is dangerous terrain. Camilla's next move remains the subject of intense speculation. Will she retreat, recalibrate, and quietly rebuild alliances? Or will she double down, seeking alternative pathways to secure her influence over the next generation? Those who know her describe a strategist who does not abandon objectives easily. If this confrontation has weakened her standing, she may respond not with retreat, but with reinvention. Meanwhile, palace advisors are reportedly urging caution across the board. Every public appearance is scrutinized, every shared platform analyzed for hidden meaning. Even silence feels loaded. Because when trust inside the institution falters, even neutral gestures can be interpreted as alignment. There is also the lingering possibility of further revelations. If one internal conversation has already escaped into the public sphere, what else might surface? Documents, messages, testimonies. The monarchy thrives on controlled disclosure. But once cracks appear, information has a way of slipping through. And beneath all of this lies the most profound question of all. What kind of monarchy will emerge from this moment? One defined by strategic consolidation? Or one shaped by generational integrity? Princess Louise may not have intended to ignite such a sweeping reckoning. She may have simply acted on instinct, guided by loyalty and conscience. But sometimes the most transformative moments begin quietly. A letter declined. A conversation resisted. A line drawn. What began as a private proposal has evolved into a symbolic confrontation over the monarchy's moral compass. And history shows that when power and principle collide within royal walls, the outcome rarely remains contained. Because in royal history, moments like this don't fade quietly, they reshape destinies.